so I can have a clue.
I just thought I wasn't funny.
No, no. You want to sign your
Yeah,
thing?
okay.
and
I
I'll
was just
move
gonna
it
double
over?
check the number real quick.
I have no idea.
I went up to the VA and we talked and I said,
Clothing store? Did you go in?
oh yeah,
No,
you got a
somebody
problem.
told me at the same business it's gonna be a clothing store.
They might be right. I'm not sure. I'm not sure to tell you the truth.
Yeah, we moved the commission. How you doing, Tommy?
I missed
How you doing, kid? I can tie my shoe.
I'm going to see that west one though. Right by Walmart.
Oh, the Asia one?
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody told me they went down there and got some
I
stuff.
can't,
Yeah?
Tom, I can't do lunchtime.
I haven't been there, but
It's impossible for me.
that's good. Item that a member of the council wants to remove for further discussion. Seeing no such request, is there a motion for the adoption of the consent agenda? I don't think we name exhibits that we have here. And your point is well taken. They all have to be identical. Okay. Any other questions?
Mayor,
Alderperson Bradshaw.
have there been any business owners that have opposed this or had any negativity?
Lining these lots at the request of the developer so that they can be further developed, which is basically a good thing. Is there any other questions? Any other discussion? Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Brashaw,
Aye.
Keister,
Aye.
Chesney,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
That ordinance passes 8-0.
We now come to ordinance's first reading. We come to item 7, which is first reading of ordinance 2016-33. Madam Clerk, could you please read this ordinance
This
and
is
the accompanying explanation?
an ordinance amending Chapter 240, Police Department, Section 240.09, Appointments of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Freeport. The reading of this ordinance was recommended by the Committee of the Whole on May 9th, 2016, on a motion by Alderperson Keister, seconded by Alderperson Chesney, and approval by majority vote.
Mr. Police Chief, this has been one of your pet projects. Would you care to comment further? We had a lot of discussion in Committee of the Whole, but I think present company might.
It also attaches onto that Highland Community College special program that we've kind of put together in conjunction with Highland, where they agreed to be on our auxiliary force while they're taking classes at Highland for 18 months. That gives them a little bit of practical experience, giving them to see what it's like to be with Freeport, and hopefully that will help to recruit and retain, local talent. I mean, even though they may not qualify for the 2 points that live within the city limits, Highland Community College, generally speaking, has folks from within this Northwest Illinois region, whether it be outside that area. But it's certainly, we feel it's going to be a great program, and but the ordinance would give the authority to the commission.
Mayor.
Alderman Keister.
Yeah, Chief Barco, the one question I have is, where are you in testing? Or is there any testing going on right now? Is this something that we would need to suspend the rules and pass tonight, or can it just go through the regular process?
That's a great question. Thank you. We currently have one remaining person on our eligibility list. Then, of course, and just like in fire, it even when we start the process of hiring, it takes quite some time to advertise, to get applicants in. So we're looking at probably testing to create another eligibility list come this summer. So it's not critical. We have one person left on our list, and so we're hoping that possibly we could get in contact with him before too long.
Any other questions?
Mayor,
Alderman Chesney?
thank you. Chief, Alderman Clem touched last week about looking at what a number would be for those that drop out of training and get hired on by different departments. Did you arrive at a number that was plus or minus where we're at today to see if we could maybe firm that up for those that are being cherry-picked away from us?
I believe the number is still good. I like that number. I'm comfortable with that number. That number cannot be a punitive type of a number. If it was, I think I would jack it up to about 25 grand. But it's still, we can only what we got into them. I believe that's a good number, although I would like to tweak the amount of time maybe and move that out, stretch that out to maybe 18 months, maybe even 24 months instead of just the 12 months.
Mayor,
Alderperson Miller.
so is that something we should address in that ordinance?
But
Preference points based on longevity for people who have.
that, although that is heavily considered being in the discussions with the board, I know that they look on that very favorably. So, the authority rests with the commission, but I do know that they take that in consideration.
Mayor?
First, is there anyone who wishes to be heard for a first time before we go to second time?
Yes, Mayor.
Alderman Ross.
Yes, Chief Barklow. I see that you do have the Freeport Auxiliary Police. What about the, did you kind of consider the Stevenson County Sheriff Reserve
For the
as the same trainee? Maybe you have a reserve deputy who wants to become a city officer?
Well, I know that they would, there's no points added for being an auxiliary alone, Same thing with being with the sheriff's reserve deputy, although that goes a long way with the commission. The only way that's being auxiliary ties in with that is if they're in conjunction in that program at Highland Community College that run concurrently.
Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. Two questions, one for the chief and then one for you, Mayor. The one for the chief is, has the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners been able to see a general draft of this, and are they comfortable with it?
Yes.
Okay. And Mayor, I don't know if it's Attorney Phillips, but did Attorney Phillips draft this or had an opportunity to review it?
Attorney Phillips did review it.
Okay.
There was consultation between previous in-house counsel, Sir Griffin, and the counsel for the State Police and Fire Commission Association. So there was discussion about the origins of this ordinance and what we were able to do and not do before this was drafted, and then Attorney Phillips gave it his ultimate approval.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
Motion to move it forward.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's moved and multiply seconded. This time we'll give it to Alderperson Ross. Is there any other discussion in regard to this ordinance? If not, this ordinance will be held over to the next regular meeting of the City Council. We now come to resolutions. The first resolution is Resolution 2016-26. Madam Clerk, would you please read this resolution?
This is a resolution to authorize an amendment to an intergovernmental agreement for the operation of an enterprise zone. This is for the expansion of Barco's Group's Collision Center located at 558 Fairgrounds Road in the JJ Venture realigned boundaries.
Director Mills.
Thank you, Mayor. This resolution is necessary for the city to formally indicate approval of the expansion of the intergovernmental agreement itself. Stevenson County, City of East Dubuque, Hanover, and Joe Davies County have to pass an identical resolution. This is the action that actually authorizes amending the agreement to include those proposed expansion areas.
Any other questions from the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Clem.
motion to move it forward?
Second.
It's moved by Alderman Clem, seconded by Alderperson Bradshaw, to approve this resolution, Resolution 2016-26, which would authorize amending the intergovernmental agreement among the various members of the enterprise zone to include this new territory. Is there any other questions? Any other discussion? If not, Madam Clerk,
Mayor.
please take, I'm sorry,
Sorry.
Alderman McClanathan.
One thing that I'd forgotten to double check, do we have the appropriate exhibit that we need for this one?
We do.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, Madam Clerk, please take the roll on the motion to approve.
Brashaw,
Aye.
Keister,
Aye.
Chesney,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
That passes 8-0.
Come to item 9, which is Resolution 2016-30. Madam Clerk, would you please read this resolution and the accompanying explanation?
This is a resolution to enter into an agreement with Melrose Pyrotechnics Incorporated for the 4th of July weekend 2016 fireworks display to be held on July 3rd, 2016. The writing of this resolution was recommended by the Committee of the Whole on May 9th, 2016 on a motion by Alderperson Brashaw, second by Alderperson Clem, and approval by majority vote. I should note that Attorney Phillips has received an updated copy of the agreement, and it is in the name of the City of Freeport and in the name of the Skyworks. And that would be the only change to the Melrose Pyrotechnics Incorporated agreement.
Mayor?
Which is for insurance purposes. Alderman Keister.
Yes, at the committee of whole, several questions were asked about this that I'd like to try and give an answer to right now. One of the questions was the type and number of pyrotechnics being used. I contacted Melrose on that, and what they told me is since this is totally synchronized to music, the number and type of shells will not be decided until the music has been decided on. I received the music score for that last Friday night, and I have sent it back to them with approval. So I expect to hear from them in the very near future as to the types and number of shells that will be used during the music. The other thing is the money we have in the coffers right now. Well, unfortunately, there's not much there because the big push, a little over $100 in there right now because the big push for the fundraiser started a week ago. I've personally contacted close to 30 businesses here in town. The response has been very positive. However, what they told me it would take them 1 to 2 weeks to get things straightened around to where they can actually send the money in. From what I've seen out there talking to people and stuff, I'm 100% confident that the money will be there when it's needed. It's just, like I said, the fundraising the big push has just started, and we're just going to need a week or two for the money to start rolling in. And I'm open to any other questions that they have on it.
Mayor?
Alderman Ross.
Yes. Alderman Keister, do we have any estimate what, how many funds may be coming in from the?
At the present moment, no, I do not. I am planning, hopefully, I'm going to take a day off this week and contact some of the businesses I've already contacted and get an estimate or get an idea from them whether the funding is going to be there. And I'm sure it will be. It's just a question. Some of them, and I don't really want to name anybody right now, but some of them have to go through corporate headquarters and stuff first before they can actually commit to any kind of funding. So that would take that's going to take several weeks right there. But they had indicated to me that they were very confident that something will be given. They just, because it has to go through corporate, they cannot make the decision themselves.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mayor,
Alderperson Miller.
so what do you think will happen then if you don't get that funding? You're going to go with the $5,000 show?
I'll be honest with you, I'm being optimistic. I don't think that's going to happen. Not
And
from
what if?
everything, not from everything I've seen out there. I don't believe it's going to happen.
So if you sign that contract at 20,000 and we don't even know what the shells are for 20,000 and you don't get enough money raised, will they back that off and say, okay, we'll take 5?
There is room to back it off, some of the pyrotechnics off of it to get the cost down. That is, I have the agreement with them on that we can back it down. And as I said, personally, I don't believe it's going to happen. We have 2 other people besides myself out there on the streets now beating on the doors. And as I said, the problem is, you know, we did get a late start on it, and that was not right, but because of getting all things together, that's the way it happened. I believe that there's enough, you know, I've seen enough talking to these people that the money's gonna be there. I am 100% confident of that.
Additional discussion.
Mayor,
Alderman Clanathan.
thank you. When do you need this by? And the reason I'm asking is because if we're, the contract, I know you're saying there's some wiggle room and things of that nature, but the contract says 20,000. So when do you need this by with Melrose?
The contract to Melrose as soon as possible. I can call them and see if we can wait until the first of next month. But, you know, they are holding the spot for us. And beyond that, I mean, obviously, they would like some kind of commitment for the spot, or they might give it to somebody else. And right now, there is nobody else out there to do it.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderperson Bradshaw.
thank you. Have you seen this contract and read the legalities of it
I have.
further? May I ask, is there any clause in it that allows us to lower the quantity of charges or shorten the length of the program for a lesser cost?
Not at the present time.
Mayor,
Alderman McLaughlin.
thank you. What if, I mean, I know what we budgeted last year, I think, but what do we have budgeted for this, if anything, right now?
The way the budget is structured for your consideration is $5,000, which is the commitment that we discussed at Committee of the Whole, and up to $15,000 in contingency, which would require action of the council to dip into that. So, you know, we've anticipated that this is an unknown. We can make this commitment go if all else fails. The only other comment I would add to your discussion is we have dealt with Melrose in the past, and we've had a very good experience with them. But I know that when they lock in a date, they want a contract, and this contract is coming fairly late. So I know that we're all between a rock and a hard place on this one. My advice is plug a number in here you're comfortable with and get it approved, or we risk capsizing the whole thing.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Clem.
is there a specific amount asked for down or anything?
No.
As you sign the contract?
No, there's nothing asked for down. And I do, if I may, Mayor, I do want to make one other comment too. One of the things with this that's, I don't know if it's stymieing it, but it's, people are not thinking in this community about donating for fireworks. This is a new thing to them entirely. And from what I've heard from the businesses I've contacted, as I said, I don't think it's going to be an issue. It's just giving them a couple of days to think about it and let the money start coming in. Now, I talked to NIDA today, and there's a little over $100 in there. And I would expect that to change by this time next week. And certainly, if members of this council and those businesses that might be amiable to do this, certainly they can talk to them, or they can call me and I can come talk to them. You know, we can use all the help we can get on this. Because if this goes, and I'm sure it's going to, it's only going to benefit this community. Now, I will tell you that it's already, we've discussed it several times. This last minute thing will not be anymore, because on July 4th, we will be planning next year's fireworks, starting the planning of next year's fireworks, with the intent that by December, the bids will be going out for the Sky Concert as well.
Mayor,
Alderman Chesney.
thank you. And I could appreciate that, you know, these types of items take a while to get ramped up, and you know, I commend Alderman Keister for taking a lead role in this. I mean, my view would be is, you know, if Alderman Keister believes he can come up with the money, I think that we should defer to his judgment on this and give him an opportunity to, you know, shake loose the extra dollars. That would be my preference. However, I don't necessarily know that I'm married to $20,000 with $100 in the bank, but I don't also think that I want to do what we did last year with the fireworks and get all excited over $5,000, recognizing it's a lot of money, but we have an alderman that says he can raise the money, so my view would be is let him raise the money.
Further discussion?
Is that a motion?
Sure. Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll do the same one I did last week. Since I was born on the 4th of July, I'll make it a second.
The motion and second to approve Resolution 2016-30, which is an agreement with Melrose Pyrotechnics. Is there any other discussion, any other questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Alderperson Brashaw.
Thank you. I guess my question's for Alderman Keister. You said you approve the music score. Is it country bluegrass? Is it something patriotic? Is it rap?
No, I can assure you it is not rap. No, it is pretty much all patriotic and military theme music for the entire score, which runs about approximately 20 minutes.
Any other discussion? See no other discussion. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Brashaw,
Aye.
Keister,
Aye.
Chesney,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Mayor,
Yes, Alderman Keister.
if I just if I may say one thing, I want to thank you for your support. And believe me, the effort is going to be put into it. And if this does fail, and I've no doubt in my mind that it won't be for putting enough effort in it to make it happen. And again, think about companies and stuff that may be able to help make this happen and stuff, and contact me, and I will immediately get in contact with them. And Alderperson Miller, I will come down and talk to you tomorrow.
Okay.
We move on to item 10, which is Resolution 2016-31. Madam Clerk, could you please read this resolution?
This is a resolution to create a tax increment financing commission for the city's South Side tax increment districts. The writing of this resolution was recommended by the Committee of the Whole on May 9th, 2016, on a motion by Alderperson Brashaw, seconded by Alderperson Keister, and approval by majority vote.
A couple of things for discussion. First, this resolution has been clarified in some particulars, so there's an amended version, which I would commend to your attention. That amendment was cleaning up some of the language of this resolution in terms of the functions of the commission for prioritization, for transfer funds, for also evaluating whether certain parcels could be incorporated into a new TIF district for some of the developments. That comes from the base being set at a high level with no development on such parcels as, for example, the farm and fleet. Second, this resolution is offered for this purpose. We have 4 TIF districts, which I think could benefit for some long-term planning. To look at the priorities of each TIF and decide what are the most important things to tackle. I think that process benefits from transparency and including some new people in it. I think the council probably has received a communication, as I did, from one of our economic development organizations. I see them as involved in this commission, but not the exclusive party to advise us on our own TIF districts. I think that that's fairly substantial with other parties about it. But at the end, I think that we should keep our eye on the ball, and that is we have our highest and ask for their input in developing that plan. But the ultimate decision-making body is right here. I know there were a couple of different questions that were posed about membership, about terms, et cetera, in committee of the whole. I had some answers to those questions, but again, there's not a rush on this one. So is there any discussion, or we can also defer that discussion?
Mayor,
Alderman Chesney.
I make a motion to refer this to the June Cal.
I'd second that.
Very good. There's a motion and a second to refer to the committee of the whole. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. We now move to other business. Item 11 is the fiscal 26-2017 appropriation ordinance discussion. There's a number of items that were provided to the council. Mr. McGurlap, would you join us at the podium? Bernie, are you going to need some help to run the projector, because we're going to probably need you at the microphone, or otherwise people can't hear you. Okay. Would you like a chair? No, I will be on my knees. Okay. All right. This spending plan will balance. The appropriation ordinance would include contingencies. Those contingencies are not a flat percentage of the overall budget, which is sometimes done in other municipalities. Expenses that are probably going to be incurred according to our consultants this year. But our budget is not predicated upon the worst case scenario. So the contingency takes that into account. This budget includes in contingency a certain amount of money for labor contracts and non-union salary increases. It does not include directly in a spending plan what they are, but everything in our contracts for ASME and our existing increases is included. And the reason for that distinction is that we don't know what those contracts are going to be. We have an idea, but we don't have them nailed down yet. We won't know until they're all agreed. So that also is in contingency. We have restored the position in the police department. They would maintain the same amount of personnel that they have now. And we have provided some, in answer to Alderman McClanathan's request, some possibilities on non-personnel cuts, which we do not advise you to do. We have included all of the other expenses in this new draft of the budget. We have included, for example, funds for economic development, basically at the existing levels that the council has approved. You will find, for example, in accordance with the NIDA contract, $100,000, which is distributed to the TIF districts, but also $10,000, which is in contingency for general fund. If pursuant to the contract, they had activities that were not covered in a TIF district, and they were pre-approved by us as expenditures to be made in advance. So we have taken into account virtually, I think, all of the matters that have been raised by the council in our initial discussion and addressed them in this budget. One other thing, two things that I would like to also highlight. Number one, some of the changes that we made in the budget are because the first bond payment does not happen in this coming fiscal year. That will probably fall in May of 2017. So we've redistributed those funds to the priorities that the council has talked about. That gives us a little bit of weasel room of about $150,000, $175,000. Second, we have looked at great care with our capital spending plans, and we have adjusted downward some of those provisions. And there's a discussion going on with the fire chief about the type of vehicle that he needs for his battalion commander, And I know some of you in the council have raised the same question. So there's a few things that we can iron out there as well. What I want to stress is that there's a lot of work that's been done in this budget, probably the most scrutiny I've seen in a long time, to make it balance. But please do not confuse contingencies with the spending plan. They are extra. And if you add them into the appropriation ordinance, it is an authorization to spend. It does not mean that we'll spend every bit of that money. So last year, this council approved an appropriation ordinance which exceeded revenues on paper because of the contingencies. But fortunately, a lot of the things that we had planned for in an extreme urgency did not occur. So we'll actually end the year with what we expect to be a surplus. Bernie?
Can you hear me? Maybe move it down here. Pardon? No, it's on. Move it down to here. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, I'm not used to this technology. Better? Anyway, what I had attempted to do is to create a very kind of a living document so that we make changes, the changes are showing up instantaneously. I did this by classification, and this is the entire general fund, and this is where we are at right now in terms of a surplus. However, we are utilizing $400,000 of prior period reserves to pay down some of our pension liabilities. The one that I really would like to get cleaned up is the IRMF $300,000 that keeps growing year after year after year. And that will take everything, most of that amount, except for $100,000. If you noticed, we were talking about getting something out of contractual services. This is the entire contractual services across the board for all departments. Here's our commodities, 1.17 million. And then the other one is capital outlay. And that capital outlay does include the building that's currently underway. When we start looking at a percentage of those numbers, there is a percent we can probably do, but it is going to be very tough to accommodate. A number in here is for the finance department. We no longer have a server that we're running on. We are running on a server that is virtualized at Arrow, and they've been doing that for a couple years. Our server has been gone. If we go ahead and, which we'll have to update that server, Microsoft's license fees alone is $10,000 to upgrade that particular server from 2000 or 2003 to the current 2014 version. And that's going to have to be done relatively soon. So I guess my message is there's little fat, if you'd want to call fat, or places that we can take money from and cut. I also have been able to do this by department. And to do that by department, it's a matter of just showing the field list and, oh, hang on. I'll move the fund up. Now this is another cut on the same thing, 70,000. It shows various, it shows the expenses totaled by department here. So that was the goal here, to accommodate this. These numbers are built off of the last document that you received Any here? Or- These are built off the last document that was just printed out that I believe has, it has all of your years on there. I'm looking at fiscal year 14, year 15 data, year-to-date 16. This is the remaining estimate, and this is the fiscal year estimate after I added the projections to finish the year. I compared this against the original budget, the revised budget, and gave you a budget variance. I have also looked at the appropriation from last year and gave you appropriation variance. And these are the number of employees, and this is what the departments have requested. So there's a lot of debate that's gone into this internally, and if there are any questions on the documents. Now, I did deliver one to Jody, and unfortunately, I ended up having, you have to switch back and forth the pages, and I was really frustrated with that when that happened. But any questions here as we go further? What are you?
Questions to the council?
Mayor?
Alderperson Miller.
A couple of things just to start. I have 3 different versions of this spending plan, and Meg, thank you for this hard copy that shows everything from 14 on, because it felt like we were really moving in a blind area that we had no idea what we were looking at. But just on the second line item there, where you've got your food and beverage tax, there are 3 different numbers, kind of what I have in front of me, but anyway, you have a remark on last week's copy that tells how you arrived at that number, and it says that your 650,500, it comes to this equation because of, and you've got a math number there, but your math number doesn't equal it.
Not 100%, yes.
No.
Yeah.
So how do you have a math number that doesn't equal any of the 3 numbers that are there?
Those math numbers came at a time prior to the estimates to complete. And now, if we go back in time, that would reflect that. Now, these numbers are here. We're looking at this number here, the 63,000 is the estimate that I think we're going to end up with between now and the time the audit, because of the GASB rule that we can recognize revenues out to 60 days after the fiscal year is over as being part of being allowed for spending in the current fiscal year. So this is reason for this estimate to complete, to reflect those revenues that have yet to come in. So that's given me 634,000. When I first started doing that with the remarks, that was how I got to that. Now we're close enough. The 634 is now to 635. Kind of understand? That was the progression of those numbers, unfortunately. And this electric tax is the same. And when I looked at the history of the numbers, this seems reasonable. It is aggressive, but reasonable.
Okay, so follow up, Mayor?
Alderperson Miller.
The word aggressive kind of bothers me. In your email that you sent to us, Mayor, I'm sure, I don't know, I wouldn't assume that you read that cover letter that was on the email from Bernie, and it said, no, it said that he was aggressive in his revenue, even though there was a decline in the workforce, and that scares me. It feels like we're taking a risk when our city numbers are going down, but we're taking a risk and being aggressive in revenue. So I'm looking at the property tax, and this is the first time I got to see the numbers that Meg had given us. But what 14 property tax is, 15 is less than that, and 16 is still less than 14. But yet now we're projecting that in 17 we're raising a significant amount. So I'm wondering, how do we raise from 17 becomes higher than 14 when the last 2 years have not?
This is the actual levy.
Okay.
The value on the levies, yes.
So you believe that's correct?
Well, that's what will be in the tax bills.
That's
Okay.
what's on the tax bills, yes.
And-
That is the
and-
actual levy.
I apologize, I didn't see the memo, but here would be my comment. If you look at property taxes, the number that is most important is what did we levy? Because that's what's going to be put in the tax bill by the county clerk and collected by the county treasurer. Now, if you look at the other tax revenues, your best indication of where we're going with that is to look at the historical trends in each of them. If you look at the overall employment statistics in Stevenson County, there's a higher rate of employment and incomes are going up. They're not going up a huge amount, but they're going up. So there's more disposable income, so it should come as no surprise that food and beverage might be going up as a reflection of more people that are going and spending and, you know, taking Sunday brunch or whatever. So, you know, I think the real question you want to ask yourself going across here is on these taxes, are the numbers realistic in terms of projections? Do they follow a continuum that makes sense in today's climate? And that's a judgment call that each of you have to make.
Mayor, follow up on that?
Yes,
I
Alderperson
guess
Miller.
my concern on that is just the word being aggressive and I'll just read to you so you know what I'm talking about with this email. It says this budget is aggressive on revenue projections, but with the declining labor and population base, this remains to be seen. They are aggressive, but realistic at a 90 to 95% confidence level. So I guess my concern with that, Mayor, is that I guess my take on it is that we should be conservative, not aggressive.
Okay. Further discussion. Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. A couple questions, and thank you for the work and the work with others. I'm getting pretty comfortable with the different formats, so
Okay.
thank you. Directly in regards to finance, and on that one, just a couple things. If you could just kind of explain what the thought process was on these ones. You had one auditing at 40,000, and then also the other technical services at 50. In your comments, you indicate for the first one was an interdepartmental cost share with water and sewer plus 10K, and then also on the other one, current consulting until finance director is hired, 20 weeks plus 10K. Is the 10K? Is there anything to that number other than you're just kind of putting a little bit of wiggle room
Cushion.
because those are unknowns?
The unknowns, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, if I got a follow-up, Mayor?
Sure. Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. Another one is on the MFT. I understand the majority of it was coming from the state funding. There was a section that talked about transfer from fund balance reserve. It was about 127,000. Which account is that coming out of?
That's coming out of MFT.
Okay.
When there's anything that deals with a reserve in a specific fund, it is that fund's reserve.
Sure.
It's not general.
Thank you. And I guess a final question, Mayor. From your initial comments, if I may.
Sure.
Thank
Alderman McClanathan.
From your initial comments, would it be appropriate, I guess, to defer any further discussion in regards to the 49,000, I think that you're referencing on the vehicle, till we kind of see what you come back at us with?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Mayor,
Alderman Chesney.
thank you. Bernie, I have several questions for you. On the document that was loaded to our website, that's the document that I'm using, not the
Okay.
Excel spreadsheet, so you know where I'm coming from. I would refer you to the city clerk's total. It says under non-bargaining, or excuse me, under elected official, current position plus longevity. I wasn't aware that elected officials receive longevity.
You're correct. And that has been changed.
Okay,
It's current position, period.
all right.
All the elected positions, I just did a copy, and that's, yeah.
Follow up, please.
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. Bernie, my understanding is that PEP is 1% of the salary, and there seems to be some inconsistency on that, because if we had non-bargaining PEP of $36,000, wouldn't PEP be $360? Not 183?
Where are you at?
I'm under city clerk, Department 13.
That is interesting. I'll give you that. 183 should be 10% of the 93, 96.
Follow up, Mayor.
And
Alderman
that's
Chesney.
my understanding.
Yep.
I could be wrong.
Okay. If I could refer you to Department number 31, Finance Department. Two-part question, sir. One is, how much did you allocate for the finance director and salary? And the follow-up to that is that I show that you only have budgeted $8,430 for health insurance for the total. However, if we add 2 additional employees, the cost of healthcare could exceed nearly $50,000. So in order to accurately budget that particular fund, it would certainly appear to me that it would be much higher for the health life insurance than $8,430, and that would be Department 31 dash 451.
One second. Here's how that number was acquired. Yeah, hang on a second. $832, and these two numbers here should be the PEP and finance.
No, I was referring to healthcare.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Healthcare you have at 8,000. I'm not at it now.
430.
It's my problem there, and that is my problem. Finance director is not, healthcare is not in there.
And either is the other position.
The other position's part-time right now, but you're correct.
Okay. But you have 2 full-time.
Yeah.
Or actually 3
Yeah,
full-time.
2 full-time. And I'm using this one part-timer that I didn't change.
So you'll have to revise the finance up.
Yes.
Okay.
I think there's another error in that department too. Mayor, can I ask that?
Alderperson Miller.
If you're right in that same line there, all the other departments that have 2 employees, it says the life insurance line is $252, but finance has 3 people and it says $252. So
It'll all be tied to the
that all goes
finance
together with that?
director, yeah.
Okay.
Because yeah, okay. That's my error.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you, sir. If I could refer you to the fire department. Tell me when you're there, please.
Okay.
My question is, sir, you have 38.15 firefighters and 8.5 in non-bargaining. I don't think that those 2 employee counts are correct. And then you have total personnel services of 46.65. It's the only department that has that unique breakout.
This is due to the fact that there are a couple retirements happening and they're not being replaced and they're prorated. Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. I was looking a bit in the contingency section, and particularly the question I had was on the one where it talked about other technical service. It had 42,000 in the spending plan and 97,500 in the contingency. The comment was miscellaneous professional services. I think, but I'm not certain. Is the arbitration contingency part of that, and what else? If
Arbitration is part of that. The 42,000 is part of the fireworks, which got moved down to 591. So that will go down by 5,000, plus it's 30,000 for the move. And on the next version delivered, I don't know if it's on that one, it should have indicated that.
okay.
Okay, and then the rest of it, that's on the spending plan. 97,000 is the contingency that you have indicated, yes.
Thank you.
Further discussion, Alderperson Miller.
Couple of questions, Bernie, on, obviously, every year there are people that are eligible for longevity. Is that been factored in?
That has been factored in, yes, and I factored that in, give you, and that really took all last weekend to take care of.
Follow-up?
Alderperson Miller. Follow-up.
And I don't see anywhere where the employee contributions are towards health insurance.
The employee, you won't see that there in this because the check is cut from the employee because that's being deducted from theirs, delivered to the healthcare. And what we're seeing, what you're only seeing is the employer cost.
Right, so where do we see the employee, their contribution?
Their contribution does not show up on the direct cost because when you're paid $10 an hour and you take $1 off for the employee contribution, that $10 is part of the wage. It's just like the taxes. When you cut a payroll check, you have a tax that is taken off. It's a liability that we take away from the employee. The system cuts a check. That check now ends up going to fund the healthcare department. It's going in there.
So where's it seen at? Because it doesn't seem very transparent.
Okay, no, it won't be in there. I agree with you there. But it is one of those costs that is part of labor. In other words, the $10 is the full rate for the labor hour. Whatever is deducted from an employee's check as a deduction is a liability to the organization, even though it may flow back. And let me show you how that, where that's coming from. Hang on one second. Now, where did my...
Mayor, while he's looking at that, can I ask you something on yours?
Yes, Alderperson Miller.
It shows on your budget that you've got a line item for printing. And last year's budget, you spent $54.77, and this year is $3,500? Would that be right, or is that an error? is-
Be honest with you,
It's on page 8. And it is number 573. And when I say page 8, it's what Meg gave
yeah,
us.
I think that should be 350, not 3,500.
Yeah, it seems a little off, doesn't it?
Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
In the same respect, on the same line, if you look at 2015, it was 3406, but the year before was 235. Is that number also correct or incorrect?
No, that number is correct.
Okay.
Mayor?
Alderperson Bradshaw.
While Bernie's looking up his, can I ask you one question, please?
Proceed.
Okay. You had mentioned that the first bond payment will free up about $150,000 in this fiscal year since it isn't due and payable till the following year. The bond payment you were referring to, was that involving the Carnegie rehab?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And actually, I think it's higher than 150. I think it's actually closer to 200.
Thank you.
I think the exact number is 180. Okay. You might have something.
Okay.
Okay. The costs are in there, but the revenue side, but I'm $255,000 under. This is the total health care based upon the employer share on a monthly basis. This is the annual basis. This is the budgeted number, but there's that's the, and the actual number is $3.6 million before we hit the wall and reinsurance kicks in. The difference between the 3.6 and that is this number, which is part of a contingency.
Okay, so you think there's something you might need to look at in
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
Okay, and then just as a typo, you've got something in a lot of places here. You got what I'm gonna say.
Typos, yeah, because I've been
No, I'm
paying attention to numbers.
yeah, you've got a SHIT all over this for premiums. Which it might be true, it's just, I think it might be a typo.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mayor?
Never noticed it.
yeah, it's all over.
Good.
Alderman Keister. Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Chesney.
Thank you, sir. Bernie, real quick, if I could refer you to the library budget, under Fund 13, 451. It's the group insurance.
Yep.
Now, from fiscal year 12 through 16, it's been 75,000 year over year, exactly the same. Obviously, health insurance has gone up significantly since 2012. My question is in the library's budget, where do they get debited and the corporate fund gets credited for the employees' health care in the library? I don't see it in there because the line got moved.
The you're looking at the library's
Healthcare.
healthcare.
It used to be
75,000. That is correct.
75,000 and it was 451, so 130451.
And the 75,000 was always a movement of funds directly to, back to general. That's what general had charged library for some time.
Correct.
Now, this is the correct number for libraries, healthcare, and all of these benefits are correct.
And where would I see the healthcare in the library's budget now?
That's right here.
I don't know what right here means.
I mean, it's under 13,451. The new number is 92,000. The new number for the library is 92,000.
Oh, I found it. Thank you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor.
And these are, I think, good numbers, but until I start bouncing real actuals against them, I will not know for sure.
Quick follow-up.
Alderman Chesney.
Now, do we audit that particular number of 92,000 against the actuals to see if we either owe the library money or they owe us money?
That has not been done.
Why?
Time. At this time.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Alderman Keister.
the, on the city council for other technical services of $10,000, that was, for the ordinance that was recently passed for outside services at request. Is that what that's for?
That's correct.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Clem.
I'm probably going to stick my foot in my mouth here, but that's okay. I've done it before. I'll do it again. Bernie, we're getting an awful lot of numbers bounced around. And each time the format has changed somewhat. We got it down here. There's some real good reports from some of the department heads, what their departments are doing, what the changes in them are, that kind of stuff. Last year when we had Director Haggard here, and for years beforehand, I have to be truthful with you, I've never seen the amount of paperwork that we have right at the moment. And if you said to me, Tom, we're $2,472,000 short, I'd say, okay, because I wouldn't know where the hell to find it. You know, those are kind of my concerns. I think we got to get it down to where, I mean, we can bounce back and forth. We've seen a lot of things that were right. We seem to see things that we need to look at. But there really ought to be, in my mind, and I think in probably a couple other aldermen's mind, there ought to really be a simpler way that we can look at this and ask some intelligent questions. I mean, and I'm not saying you've done anything wrong, okay? You know, you're up here on this thing, and we're down here on this thing, and somewhere we got to get to where the numbers don't change and where we're really short and what we can do to change it.
Yeah.
And
This is the number that I'm really worried about right here. That's the, this is our surplus. And all of these numbers come together to that point. And as we change these numbers, that number changes. And my goal is to make sure that is not red, so that we're balanced as black. And yes, I may have some issues. You found a couple that'll affect this number.
Right, I understand.
You know, and that is, I wanted to get it at this screen, 1 or 2 pages are really backed up. Now, one of the things that you had pointed out to me last week, Chromebooks. And some people can see it, some people can't. I'm dealing with the same thing with multiple systems and a ledger that is not structured to be able to report effectively off of as you pull one thing and you pull another thing. So I'm doing with a lot of ands, ifs, and buts. And that has been extremely frustrating on my part. But my goal is to basically produce something that, if you want to look at just the fire chief, it should pull in all of his departments. And sooner or later, if we do get another accounting system and we collapse some of these funds to departments and create some funds that make things effectively, you can go ahead and do this kind of stuff and get a number. That makes sense? So that you can see where we're at. If we just look at another thing that I was trying to get to is the actual cost of an employee that we're dealing with. And this is just the police chief and his cost on employees based upon the number of employees and the personal benefits and the direct charges, so that we know what happens when we hire one or we don't replace somebody. That impact is more than just a wage that we pay. And you wanted the numbers in the interdepartmental split apart. This is what it's beginning to show.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you. Bernie, I thank you for working with us through this. I know it's been a work in progress for you since this was all dumped in your lap, and this is a lot of the city government stuff is new to you, and trying to find a format to work for you that also works for us has been quite a challenge. I realize that. And I'm not trying to pick on you, but I have a couple of questions regarding the street department. I am on page 15, and the first line item I would like to address, let me see if I can read this correctly. Object 544, contracted infrastructure, repair, maintenance. I'm looking at this, in the comments, it says leaf contracts, sweeping, and tipping fees. I guess my question is this. The 2 previous years, we had $150,498 for 2014, $140,260 for 15, and future year 2016 estimate was only $91,000. If this is including the leaf contracts and the tipping fees, I'm assuming is for dumping the leaves, how can it possibly be that low? The department requested $125,000. Are these figures realistic, or did we get quite a deal on our leaf dumping fees, or how could those numbers be so changed?
You're looking at 44?
544, street department, under
street-
44, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe Mr. Dole could help me with that?
15.
Page 15.
I was on the one on the website.
It's 125,000 this year for the contracted infrastructure, and that should include the tipping fees.
Okay,
Mayor?
follow.
Director Dole, can you shed some light in this? I think that's what our contract calls for with the recipient, is it not?
The leaf contract and tipping fees are two different things. The leaf contract is for the tipping of the leaves, which is last year, the last 3 years was 40,000. The tipping fees we're talking about there are sweepings, household items from cleanup orders, any other debris that we've acquired for whatever reason. But the leaf contract and the tipping fees are two separate items. The leaf contract is a very specific $40,000, what it was last year, a very specific number. Then the balance of that is tipping of other items throughout the year.
Follow up, Mayor.
Alderperson Bradshaw.
Mr. Dole, is it realistic then to assume that you could shave off $25,000 from the 2014 or 15 from last year?
Yeah, I'm confident with the $125,000. Now, that's assuming the leaf contract comes in at, very close to the last 3 years going.
Do we have a current contract?
We do not. We are not under contract at this point.
Follow up one more time
Alderperson Bradshaw.
on that item alone. When is that contract under review, and do you anticipate it will be similar?
The vendor from the last 3 years did offer the same dollar amount, I believe. If there was an incremental increase, it was minimal. But I think he offered either a year-to-year or another 3-year at the same cost. So it would have been beneficial to look at that. But we typically go out for bid, advertise it and encourage bids. But so I'm pretty confident that we'll come in at very close to the last 3-year dollar amount. That's why I came up with that number.
Okay, and Mr. Mayor, may I ask one more question in that department?
Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you. In the same department, which is Department 44, Street Department, line item 622, snow removal supplies. I'm looking at former years at 177.5 and 197.5 approximately, and you're asking for 210. I do recall you saying that you were switching to salt or perhaps 100% salt. Would that partially be why this cost is a little higher, sir?
Yes. I have, we go out, state bids the salt numbers for us in a consortium throughout the state of Illinois. And again, in the last several years, we've had pretty good prices on salt. And I usually contract 1,500 ton for the year. Well, this year I asked for 2,000 ton because I'm going to attempt to go with a different method of snow removal this year, which would require more salt and no sand. So that's why that's increased. And again, I have to assume a per ton price that I haven't got back yet. I've submitted the application for my tonnage, and I'm waiting to see what the bids come back in. Last year they were $64 a ton, and I'm hoping that's going to be close to that again.
One more follow-up, Mayor.
Alderperson Bradshaw.
Regarding that salt and sand, one of the reasons I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you're going to more of the 100% salt is because it's labor consumptive and to sweep up the sand and or problematic to have that sand go into the sewer system?
Yes, there's a combination of reasons to switch out of the sand. I mean, you have to buy it, we have to truck it, we have to mix it, which all those things take time. Then we distribute it on the streets. Then in the spring, we have to go clean it and dump it under tipping fees, which is very expensive because it's a very heavy product. So we're buying it just to throw it away. And I had a discussion earlier with Alderman McClanathan. I'm hoping this works. The state does straight salt. I'm hoping this method works because the residual effect is none for cleanup, and that would be wonderful. We currently use straight salt in our highways. We currently use straight salt in the downtown. So the cleanup is zero, which, is very costly in the spring. So the savings are spread out amongst a lot of different things.
Mayor?
Thank you.
Yes. Alderman Keister.
Yes, sir. There's something in the budget that I do want to address, and it affects the fire department, the street department, and the police department. Specifically, fire department, street department losing 2 personnel, and the police department are losing 1 personnel. And I would like to hear from each of the department heads, starting with the fire department, as how they feel about that and what impact that's going to have on their being able to supply services and on supplying services and the safety of their personnel, et cetera, et cetera. Starting, I would appreciate with Chief Miller.
We'll start with the police department.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the bringing the subject up, but the last I had heard, and I guess the budget numbers are still kind of hanging out there, that we were going to stay at the staffing level of 46. We're currently at 45 right now, but we were going to stay at the staffing level at 46. Now, historically speaking, that's still a little low, but I'm confident that that our men and women will be able to do the job and deliver the same level of service they've had this last year anyway.
Okay, thank you. Chief Miller?
Chief.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. To be honest with you, I have some extreme concerns about reducing the fire department staffing by 2. What that would do is, first of all, create an imbalance in our staffing per shift. We have 3 shifts of 24 hours. So 2 shifts would be 1 person short, and the 3rd shift would be staffed at 15. Now, our maximum staffing's at 15, and if we're reduced by 2 or 1 per shift, that'd leave me a minimum staffing at 11. And at 11, that provides for 2 firefighters on each fire truck, 2 paramedics per ambulance, and a battalion chief. And what that would do is, first of all, it would have the council determine our level of service. So you decide what you want to give to the community. I would need to discuss with you what I would need to provide that level of service. So for, we talk about a staffing level of 11. That's provided the 2 ambulances are in service and they're not on other calls. Now you take each ambulance and assign them on a call of various natures, whether it's a medical or cardiac or trauma. Those 4 folks are out of the picture. Now I'm looking at a level of service of 7 firefighters for structure fire that in no way complies with NFPA 1710. I've mentioned it before that if I have a fighter that's severely injured or killed, we're going to have a lot of federal agencies coming down and examining why we are staffing at this level. And it's extremely dangerous. It would impact our able to deliver services tremendously. Recently, the council authorized a investment of medical equipment so we could provide paramedics on fire engines in the event that ambulances are unavailable due to the recent shutdown of one of the private providers. That was based on not hiring any more personnel. That was based on maintaining a staffing level of 45. Now, if we're going to reduce staffing level, we have to rethink that whole policy and ability of providing paramedic service fire engines. So I'm trying to be proactive and absorb the shortage of ambulances in the area. And now that program could be in jeopardy because I wouldn't have enough staff to go around. Another example how that would impact us is I would be 1 sick call or 1 injury away from closing a station. I would not have enough manpower to staff the 3rd station, or we would have to go into an overtime situation. So I think those are some consequences that needed to be addressed or at least brought up to the floor, and I'd be happy to answer any questions relative to that.
A follow-up question for Chief Miller, please.
Well, why don't we hear from Mr. Dole since you asked each department person to respond?
Thank you, Mayor. It's very similar to the police and fire. My expected levels of service are completely dependent on the number of people in the department, the staffing level. I've obviously considered the loss of actually Alderman Keister, only 1 person, not 2.
Okay.
But the effects are, still there. Especially in the snow season, there's a route assigned to each person. Just the loss of 1 person means redesigning everyone's routes to expand and double up. During leaf season, for example, everyone's involved, and in the current levels, I had 2 guys that I was able to keep out of the leaf truck to go do anything and everything else that was asked. In this scenario, basically everybody's going to be doing leaves, nothing else gets done. In a daily task for me, I can be doing 2 or 3 or 4 different jobs at one time. If I lose people, the multitasking will drop back to 1 or 2 jobs. I'm confident that we can run our department. It's just a matter of how quick are we going to get your pothole patched? How quick are we going to remove the snow off the streets? And are we going to finish up leaf season before the snow begins? It just basically slows down the level of service. We can still maintain a certain level, but it's the timing and the effects it has on certain, like, plow routes.
Thank you. If I may ask another follow-up, please.
Follow-up, Alderman Keister.
Chief Miller, you mentioned about reducing staffing and possibly getting into a position where you may have to close a station periodically. Would doing that periodically have any effect on our ISO rating? Or where are we sitting now before we get the tipping point where it's going to start decreasing our rating and thus increasing property insurance?
Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, that would have an anticipated change in our ISO rating. Presently, we are at a 3. I would anticipate that going to a 5 for fire protection services. Now, how that would impact it, it would be, in my opinion, minimal impact on residents, but it'd have a far greater reach or impact to businesses and commercial properties. That's where the insurance rating impacts those types of occupancies.
Thank you, Chief Miller.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. Director Dole, question for you. Circling back to the street department's budget, I've got a number of different pieces of paperwork here. I want to touch on what Alderman Bradshaw mentioned. The 125,000 are the leaves picked up by city workers, or is that contracted out? Was my first part of the question. City workers, correct?
City workers.
Follow up, Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. So how could the leaf contract sweeping and tipping fees be 125? Because I know that Dickman's was charging us 30,000, and then we approved a new contract at 40,000. So remind me how we get to 125.
Well, like I was saying, the tipping fees for street sweepings and cleanup orders, household goods, you're talking $80 a ton for those loads for the whole year.
Follow up, Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
I guess my question is, how do you go from 91,000 to 125? How are we getting a 30% increase? I mean, do we have more leaves, or do we have more? And especially if we're going to go away from the rock, I would assume that the tipping fees and the sweeping would go down, not up.
Mayor?
Mr. Dole.
You're saying that the actual spending was 91,000? The cushion that I build in there, I can't anticipate if there's going to be an increase in the tipping fees or how many cleanup orders we may do. If there's a couple of storms that require additional sweeping, I guess I'm always planning a little bit of a cushion for those type of, the tipping fees themselves. And we don't have a leaf contract.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Shouldn't the cushion, though, sir, be in contingency and not in the budget?
I didn't do any contingency in my initial proposal.
No, I know you didn't, but shouldn't it be in contingency?
It could, sure.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
Director Dole, just a question. On that dollars and cents, tipping fees, that also, I'm assuming that also includes the house demo and that kind of stuff, or not?
They used to, Alderman Clem, but we have a separate demo line item now under community development that we've kind of switched over to that. If we do an in-house demo, we pay for those tipping fees as well.
Okay, no problem. That's why I didn't know if some of that was intermingled in there, but thank you, I appreciate it.
Further discussion.
Mayor,
Alderperson Miller.
one thing for Director Dole, you've got I think it was Sally said something about the 210,000, but last year was 105. Was that because we didn't have much snow?
Yeah, we've had 2 light years in a row.
Okay, so
and
we
I'm
need
good with
more
that.
light years, save us 100,000?
Yes,
Okay.
that'd be great, yeah.
Okay, and another question, Mayor?
Alderperson Miller.
Bernie, you made a few comments previously about needing new software. Does that show somewhere in here?
Yeah.
Where
Yes, it's under the MIS department.
What's the MIS department?
Yeah, it's 61 or 62.
And where would that be? Under what number would?
It's in the general fund, 62.
Okay, so you are estimating a $20,000.
The $20,000.
Sorry, Bernie,
I'm sorry.
what line item, what department are you in?
It's going to be Department
62, page 30? So is that what, am I reading that right? You've got computer and network, no, that wouldn't be right. It's below it.
What department is it?
Hardware. software, 75,000.
Yeah, 75,000 on software. Now, that is something to be investigated. I have installed software as high as $1 million in this, in Birmingham, it cost them $1 million.
Not in Freeport.
Cary County cost 11 million. DuPage County cost 7 million.
Okay, and
Give
you're
you
estimating a
an
little over
idea.
100,000 for a new server and new software. A little over 100,000.
$100,000, and at this point in time, the software needs to really, truly be investigated, because most software, in my mind, is oversold and underutilized.
Okay. So one thing I think that it would be vital would be that we do the same thing as what Glendenning has for his software. Or no, you don't want them to match?
Microphone.
I would like, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if if the city and the water department shouldn't match in their software.
Well, that's what we're trying to do here. But they use different systems, and the integration of those systems is something that has been talked about but never been appropriated for.
Okay, so are we going to go in that direction so that we aren't wasting money? And
I sure hope so, because it would simplify many different things, would give you better reports, and would also mean that the system could talk to each other.
Right.
Rather than the piecemeal system we have right now.
So then where do we come up with a little over $100,000? We aren't sure what we're doing.
I will give you that, because the numbers, until we get good estimates on software that's going to affect. Now, if we go with Civic across the board, it's going to be less. But Civic does have issues too.
Is that what he has?
That's what he has. Now, one of the problems with Civic is what's the same problem with Locus if you used, is that when you have a new account, it's a property plus a digit. So you keep increasing the digit. Some software out there, you as a person has an account, the property has an account, and you merge the two. So now you can see what happened on the property, whoever was there, and if you move from one place in town to another, you don't have to create another account. But the issue is to think about doing anything different in the water and sewer department is going to take, it's going to have to be a very inexpensive software package to do that, because I know what it is to install water and sewer. I've done that.
So we need to probably look into that a little further then, Mayor? Is that what your take
That's
on
the
that?
point.
Okay, so one question totally.
Before we leave that question, Tom Glendenning, would you like to comment?
Just remember that our Civic program was a custom module for interacting with our Neptune collector reading system that reads all the meters. That the Civic program was extensively researched and recommended by other representatives in the state of those two matching. So that's there. But our Civic program is just a small module compared to what we would need to blend.
Alderperson Miller.
Okay, so that's kind of clear as mud.
Oh, may I?
So I have a
Well,
total different.
let's back up for a moment.
Yeah.
Can you clarify what's your specific question? What is it about the software you would like to know?
Well, if we're going to invest in new software and a new server, shouldn't we go in a direction to be able to talk the city and water together?
Yes.
Agreed. Yes.
Yes, and that's what's been missing right now is Locus and Civic do not interact directly.
So if we went to
Present time.
Civic, would that be a better move?
Well, that discussion of Civic has been evaluated. There are pros and cons to that, and the Civic module is quite expensive. But that is one way to change the system. And that would mean a massive changeover because most of our system for all of these operations is under Locus. I'm in favor of making the switch. I'm in favor of keeping the systems and letting them talk to each other. I'm in favor of whatever alternative will allow us to have an integrated software system so we can be less manual and more automated.
So can we get Civic for 100,000?
I don't know the answer to that question, Bernie.
Yeah, yes, that can be done.
That would make sense to
But there's more to that than just water, sewer. There's miscellaneous billing, there's permits, there's cash receipts, integrated cash receipts, so that when the customer comes in, he can take care of water, a permit, you know, anything basically through one person at one window, or maybe one window can do everything, because people will come in with all kinds of stuff to be paid. Most of it is water and sewer, but it needs to be thought through very carefully is my point, and I totally agree that this needs to be integrated with water and sewer, so there is one system feeding. At the same time, these people who do a good job of managing need to have access to this database so that they can click in and see their source document. You know, from that standpoint, I can look at an ultimate system and then start scaling it down to fit our needs.
One more question, Mayor.
Alderperson Miller.
Bernie, where can I find what we're budgeting for CVB, NIDA, A5, FDDF, all those things? Where do they come from?
The TIFs have NIDA. There's a contingency in 63 for NIDA also for $10,000.
Okay.
A5 is a different story. That's coming from, that's a different story. Right now, we need to discuss that further.
Okay, because we committed 20,000 to them, so I was just wondering where was that. And then what did we commit to the CVB?
Oh, you're talking the
Yeah, I'm just wondering where to find
visitor center?
it.
Yeah. The commitment to the Civic Center is what we receive. And last year we had budgeted 200 and some thousand and only received 190,000. So our commitment to them is basically what our revenues are. And our revenues are not what has been budgeted.
So do we have a line item for that somewhere?
It's in tourism.
In tourism, which would be where?
Here. It's on the screen. It's 190,000, 190,000.
Is it on this one that?
Probably not.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
That's a separate fund.
And is that the same thing for FDDF?
Pardon?
For the Freeport Downtown Development Fund, is that in the same? Where do we find them?
That's a part of TIF, downtown TIF.
That's TIF. Okay.
Mayor,
Alderman Chesney.
thank you. Bernie, if I could refer you over to the Interdepartmental Fund 63. More specifically, 527, other technical services. On the spreadsheet that you sent us, it shows a budget request of 42,000, which is what would the 42,000 encompass, and what is the contingency of 97,500 for?
Okay.
Could you remind me again if it's been said? I apologize.
Yeah, the 42 is a combination of $5,000 for fireworks, $30,000 for the move, and the remaining is just incidentals. The 97,000 is basically a contingency for legal services, or if you want to call it that, or other services that are necessary that have not, they're unknown. It's a contingency.
Follow-up.
Alderman Chesney.
So why would you put legal services in Fund 63? Because other technical services, I wouldn't think would include a move or anything like that. That could probably be done in a different line item, no?
That's correct, yes.
So that could be moved?
That can be moved,
All right.
yes.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Alderperson Miller.
Well, Bernie, why would you have fireworks in two different places then?
Actually, it's not. It's down in, it's gonna be in 591.
In
It was
591?
73, it was, the number last. That's where it's covered. And the contingency is there covered too.
What number did you say it was going to go in? Five what? 591?
063, 591.
Okay.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. Bernie, just a general question for you. When we talked about constructing this budget, we talked about zero-based budgeting and justifying each individual line item, and you assured me that at a minimum we have a hybrid approach. But I noticed in the comments that you're taking 3-year averages, so without sending the finance gurus that are watching at home into orbit, how can we, like a practical example is if you take your husband or wife on vacation 2 years ago and you spend $30,000 and go to France, well, you don't budget the average of 3 years as your vacation budget in 2016. Or if you put siding on your house and it costs $20,000, well, you don't average that. That's a one-time expense. So I see a lot of 3-year averages that don't seem to have much more examination under than 3-year averages. So how is this zero-based budgeting when we have 3-year averages in your notes?
I used the 3-year average basically to validate the budget. If the 3-year average was way out of whack, the question is why. And in some cases I had a good reason, in some cases I did not. So these budgets were actually originated from the departments, and I trusted most of their numbers, and they are their numbers. I put the 3-year average in there as a double check. If there was a bad assumption made. And I did catch some issues.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you, sir. Under the spending plan, and there's been so many documents, so I apologize if we've touched on this, but under the contingencies, there were contingencies that were subject to the discretion of the finance director, and then there was contingencies that were subject to the discretion of the council. Do we see a proposal under the contingencies, which is a significant amount, what that looks like in terms of who's going to give the final authorization?
Not yet. That's to be decided between the council and us. Personally, I don't care, other than the matters that are housekeeping and time sensitive, if it all goes through council.
Definition of contingency, it would be changing it could be changing the appropriation, so it would end up on your desk. Excuse me.
That's not how we do it.
Pardon?
We do contingency in the spending plan. The appropriation is contingency plus.
Okay.
I like your way better, though.
The
Sure do.
I have some concepts. Another day.
Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, in your email that you sent, you had indicated that this budget did address the $300,000 with IMRF, and you said it's spread out amongst departments. when we see that number with the 70K at the end of the line, does that include, is that true? Like the numbers we had tonight, that includes having the 300K
Yes.
distributed? Okay,
Yes. The 70K is there.
sure.
Mayor,
Alderperson Miller.
would, last week we were given a 5-year capital asset expenditure plan. Would it be appropriate to ask a few questions on that now, or do we have to, should we wait for a different time?
That's fine.
Okay. I spoke with Chief Miller just briefly because I had some questions on what he had on there, and I know you brought up the comment of the command vehicle. Wasn't sure what 80,000 was. I guess I could have asked you that on the phone, but I forgot that one about updating radios for 80,000. Just seems like a lot of money, but I don't understand what that would be. So I don't know if you want to just maybe enlighten us a little bit on that. Then I have more questions when you're done.
Chief?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. That $80,000 sum includes the radio upgrades, and I don't know if the narrative expressed as much detail, but initially my 5-year plan was to replace all of our little tiny portable radios that each firefighter carries in a fire. Doing some additional research, we found that the radio does not need to be replaced. The infrastructure needs some support. So for approximately $40,000, we can acquire 3 repeaters, one for downtown, one for south end of town near Walmart, and the other one on the west side of town, which will greatly enhance the communication and power within our portable radios. So that would translate into a $25,000 savings. So we'd increase our capabilities through technology, experience the cost savings, and still utilize our existing equipment. Now, the additional funds represented in that account would also apply towards the mobile data terminals that we reallocated those funds for the engine equipment, the defibrillators and monitors and things of that nature. So I think it still represents firefighter safety, enhanced communications, and better dispatching for our emergency vehicles. So those are the 2 main components within that line item, totaling about $80,000.
Okay. Follow up, Mayor?
Alderperson Miller.
So, I was just trying to do the math, and you've got, a little over 200,000, give or take, depending on what's decided with the command vehicle. And my understanding is there's a fair amount of money in the savings account, if you want to call it that, for the fire improvement fund that's not been spent, which, I don't have a problem keeping money in situations like that, but I'm just doing the math on what is projected. And this year there's a projection of 650,000, which at the 60-40, the way it's set up right now, would kick approximately 250,000 into general fund. And so doing the math on that, and then the fire department would get roughly 400,000. And with the savings account, there's a significant amount of money that would be sitting in for fire improvement. So I guess my question would be about doing a flop. And I know sometimes that's kind of a scary thought because sometimes that kind of stuff becomes permanent, but I'm not suggesting for a permanent because I think, that there's always room for reevaluation at a later date. But I guess my thought is because there's a good amount and there isn't huge needs in fire improvement, instead of going 60-40, if we switched it and went 40-60, because then that would actually put in approximately 150,000 more into general fund if we did that. So.
Mayor?
Chief?
Thank you. Well, with that additional 150,000, would that provide for 2 more firefighters and maybe police officers too? I mean, would that dollars be allocated towards staffing? I mean, that's just a.
I don't know. I don't know how it would be allocated. I'm just thinking, if we've got some areas that are hurting and we've got ones that are just continuing to look prettier, we need to maybe just do a reevaluation. And like I guess that's open for discussion. And even, maybe even trying a 40-60 for maybe a 2-year and then reevaluate and see how it goes. I don't know, I just think there's room for discussion.
I think that you've raised one of the most important parts of this discussion tonight. Alderman Keister asked the question, how do these attrition of retirements affect each department? Everybody wants more people, but the numbers, if we're talking about how to balance this budget, depend heavily upon what is the manpower level that you find acceptable. You know, if you add all the legacy cost, which is now, I think, a standard policy when we're looking at a position, it costs close to $100,000 for one person in the street department. It costs far more than that for a fireman. I don't know the exact number. Bernie, what is it for a fireman plus legacy? A beginning fireman.
112. Okay.
Is it 112? So, I'm in favor of whatever you want to do on manpower, but we got to be able to pay for it. So maybe one of the ways to look at this is, if we're going to restore some of this, is to look at the fire improvement fund and then start making some judgments of what's most important. I also, at the risk of offending some people here, want to suggest the following. I'm all in favor of emergency equipment, but I think we need to start thinking about what's the allocation of resources between different departments. We have some departments that are very well equipped for emergencies that are pretty few and far between. We don't have as many fires as we used to have. We have other departments that are really in great need. They're expensive. We treat everybody somewhat fairly. And for a long time, it is surgical decisions about what we do and what we invest in. And I am grateful for the questions that have been asked about the software. I think that's an important question. Because what we've done in the past, and I'm not saying it's good or bad, what we've done in the past is we've punted that. We've kicked that down the road, to use the phrase of a former alderman. And I think that IT is a fairly important segment. And I don't care whether you put that money in contingency and then release it after you have proposals, or whether you put it in the budget, but we got to address that. So I'm in favor of the fire department having the equipment it needs. I'm not in favor of the fire department having everything that it wants. And I think that it's up to us to decide where we can draw the line and where we can safely allocate resources. And I think that one of the ways that maybe we can flip this budget a little bit is to look at that fire improvement fund on a temporary basis and say, okay, if we're going to restore some of the manpower that the chief tells us that he wants, here's how we do it. So I appreciate that question.
Mayor?
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
Yeah. I'm sure you expected this. I do have a problem with that, for one main reason. You're saying it's going to be, you know, we do it for a couple years and we evaluate it. That's not going to happen. If it goes away, it's going to stay that way, unless we do it for a couple of years with a sunset clause in it, and then evaluate it at that time. Now, as far as, well, I wasn't going to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway, because I'm just, 6 months ago, the majority of this council voted to hold the line on property tax, which put us in this position right now. At that time, I asked what the plan was to make up for that money that was lost because of it. All I got was blank stares and a couple of snickers. Now I see it's taking manpower and taking money away from people it does the most good. And I'm not happy about it. Okay? And you can shake your head, but that's what it appears to me over here. Okay? There are, as far as, Mayor, your statement of things the fire department need versus what they want, I don't know if I see it that way. I don't know if I agree with you on that. I do know that if we take the manpower away from the fire department, and I'm not making this as a threat because I'm not going to do it, but I can promise you that there are people watching right now that will call ISO, and our rating will drop, and good luck trying to find more businesses to come into this community. What I would like to see is a balance on this fund to be able to keep the equipment that they need, because some of this equipment has to be rotated periodically. They have a fire station that should have been replaced 10, 15 years ago that was supposed to be budgeted on this, and they have, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, over $200,000 a year that is being spent out of this for financial obligations?
Chief?
Which financial obligations specifically? I mean, 37,000 goes to paying for the ambulance billing services. Most of it is used for maintaining equipment or buildings, and as long as I'm being recognized, I would just like to touch on the specific items such as the command vehicle. And there's been comments made that perhaps a better value would be realized through a used vehicle. That would be true if we were purchasing under the public purchasing guidelines. In other words, anybody here to go into a dealer and ask for the price for a used car. What we're doing, as well as engineering department, when they bought their Ford pickup trucks, we're taking advantage of state purchasing contracts, also Northwest Municipal Purchasing Cooperative. We can get a brand new vehicle that's ruggedized, heavy-duty suspension, brakes, and set up for a municipal vehicle for far less than a used vehicle. Example, a Tahoe that we would consider putting command staff in. A used one at Bacher's right now is $55,000 with leather seats and carpet and all kinds of luxury items. We're looking at something with rubber floor mats, basic vehicle for $32,000, with a brand new warranty, brand new components, and then the additional money that was budgeted was for lights and sirens and radios, and we did that with the chief's car, and we came $11,000 under budget. So I'm trying to give you examples of how we are managing these funds responsibly and getting the best value for the city and the dollars that are invested.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
I think there's one thing that we haven't brought up here that I believe is really important. We can talk about ISO ratings, we can talk about how fast we can get someplace, we can talk about all that stuff in the world to make everything bigger and better, but I've got one thing where I think we finally came to the point in this whole deal is, what can we afford? Can we afford that? Is that what we want? Do we want to have the chief riding around in a new Suburban while the other one's got an old Chrysler 300 he got off a drug raid? Do we want the mayor to drive around in a 1990-some Pontiac because the water department gave it to him? I mean, there's some point here, guys, we got to take a look at. And Alderman Keister, I'm not picking on you whatsoever. You may not like the money coming out of that fund, but I have to tell you one thing. In the time I've been an alderman in the city of Freeport, I saw us go from the point of we even paid for the gas for the fire department, for all the engines, all the repair to all the engines and everything else, while you took all the ambulance money and went. So then we went to redoing the billing of the ambulance. Then we went to cut down some of the things. If there's this fund was put into place to take care of the fire department. It's more than taking care of the fire department. It's time that some of this fund, some of it, be used for other things that we also need. X number of years ago, we got 3 firemen off a grant, a federal grant. I asked the question, and I wrote the letter, and if you want it, I still have it on my computer, how that was going to cost us over $1 million by the time we paid the legacy fees and everything else on it. Guess what? We're doing that. I wrote a letter saying that when fire department number 2 flooded, we never should have done it. We never should have repaired it. We didn't repair it. Firemen went in on their own and repaired it. I think we've got some things to talk about on what are real priorities. And I keep hearing about this ambulance service that was here and went away. What did we do before that ambulance service wasn't here? I think we ought to have the discussion. You guys can say time is tissue. Why do we send a fire truck behind a ambulance every place you go? And if they're not there in time, we'd send a police car out if we need it. I mean, there's a certain point, you know, and where what do we really want to provide? What can we afford, and where's the rubber meet the road? And guys, I think we're here. You know, the discussion's good. I just, you know, my son-in-law happens to be from Glen Ellen. 27,000 people got a volunteer fire department. You know, so I think I'm not saying we ought to have a volunteer fire department, but I ought to think we ought to look at how good is good and what do we need. And I'm one of the old guys that time of tissue may make a difference, but I also got a DNR, so.
Discussion, Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you, Mayor. A lot of you are thinking how many firemen are necessary, and I look at minimum manning and what I consider dangerous levels for minimum manning. No offense, Chief. He's always promised me that they'd be safe, but a lot of you know my husband's one of the firefighters. And when I worry about him going in a building and they don't have enough people there, I'm afraid. I'm afraid every time the tones go off. So, I mean, some of you, it may not affect you, but I'm worried about the safety of the firefighters, partly because I'm married to one of them, and I never know if he's going to come home. A lot of you may or may not realize that, you know, the fire department also does run the city ambulance service. These firefighters serve a dual purpose. They don't just go into burning buildings. As the mayor said, we don't have as many fires as we used to have, but we still have a great number of them. But these firemen are also trained as paramedics, and they go and they save lives. They use the jaws of lives and cut people out of cars. A lot of you have seen them at scenes. They are a necessary component to keep a city running smoothly. We don't want the ratings to change where our insurance rates go up and where other people don't think of us as a safe community and don't want to bring their business here as well. And a lot of people don't realize some of the services they provide until they actually call 911. They have a child choking, or they have a child drowning in a pool, or you're in a serious car accident on 26, and you have that ambulance show up and realize that 2 guys aren't enough to save 4 or 5 people at at a serious accident. That's why the fire truck is there, partly for control, the lights, the scene, to put out the fire if the car explodes or there's a serious situation. I'm not trying to magnify the situation to make it worse than it seems, but right now when you walk into a fire station, a lot of them are minimum man now. I am completely against shutting down the fire station on the east side. It is the smallest building per se, but it is the busiest station. I know the fire chief will back me up on that. It's the one that has the most calls on the east side of Freeport. There are older buildings there. I'm assuming that's partly why there's more fire there. Antiquated electrical systems, people that use more space heaters, so on and so forth. Anyhow, I really wish we can bring these 2 firefighters back that have been cut out with the budget, partly because of the safety, partly because of Freeport, partly because of our insurance ratings. Even if it is taking out of the capital improvement fund to help finance it, I'm for it. I think Freeport needs it. Anyhow, that's my 2 bits on it.
Mayor.
Alderman Busker.
Yeah, listening to all this, and everyone's talking like we're on an island, and outside the city of Freeport, there's a strong fire community that's right there willing to help. I understand, I'd love to have the firefighters back, but we've got budget constraints right now. You know, if we can bring the people back, when, you know, get some bigger, we need more people paying taxes instead of upping tax rates. We need to get people back into town, and when Freeport starts growing again, love to hire them. But we have people outside that are willing to help, and we have mutual aid agreements with fire departments all around. You know, I'm not saying it's the right way to go, but we're not alone. Every community's having struggles. Let's reach out for help if we need it.
Mayor?
All right, Chief.
Thank you. To address your point of mutual aid agreements, I've been doing some investigation on the demographics around us, what resources are available. And you're right, there is a strong following within the volunteer communities around us. However, I've also been told by some of those members within those departments, during the daytime, they have a hard time answering their own calls. Now, we talk about call volumes. Freeport Rural runs approximately 120 fire calls a year. The ambulance runs approximately 180 calls per year. I don't know what Glen Ellen runs annually for a call volume. We're at almost 4,400 calls per year. That's quite a significant demand on services. Now we talk about Glen Ellen. They're surrounded by full-time departments all the way around them. That's where an aggressive and beneficial mutual aid agreement comes into play. So in the event that in our area, if there's a hazmat situation, a confined space situation, we're being called not only within our own county or Mavis division, we're also being called south to Shannon and Lanark and areas that are beyond our mutual aid agreement area. So we are kind of an island here, the only full-time department between Rockford and Dubuque. Now, if you know, it's a weekend, there's plenty of folks that are in their quarters on the weekends and they can respond, that's great. But I've been told by some of our neighboring departments, they have challenges answering their own calls during the day. And typically, that's how volunteer departments transition into being paid departments because they can no longer adequately answer their own call volume. So we're just trying to make sure we're adequately covered with the resources here. Again, our ambulances are very busy, so it's a challenge to count on them to be available during a fire suppression activity.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
I think, Chief, we find ourselves in a catch-22 situation. Very simple. You mentioned you have 4,400 calls. How many of those were ambulance?
About 3,377.
That puts it down to a whole different story. But the revenue from that ambulance is what provides the money for the fire fund and everything else. So now we're saying, okay, let's cut out the ambulance. All of a sudden, you got no money coming in. Okay, so that's something to work with. Andrew, I believe you brought up last month or the month before about, or just talked about it in a conversation, was it feasible? You know, I mean, are we spending too much on what our ambulance calls are? I think that's all stuff to take a look at. But, you know, I come back to it's a matter of what we can afford and what we really need to do. And I think the 8 of us in the mayor will figure that out.
Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
Yes, several things. Number one, what I've heard said several times, that they don't understand why the engine is chasing the ambulance and stuff. I could sit here and explain why, because I've done it a number of times. But what I would like to challenge those who don't know is go right along with the fire department. I'm sure the chief would be happy to arrange it for you. But if you want to know why they need the extra manpower, why the engine runs with them, then go find out. Go spend a couple days there and ride with the people and see what they do out there and why they need the extra manpower. Because like I said, I've lived it for 24 years. I could explain to you exactly why, but it wouldn't mean anything. It would mean better if you went out there and seen it yourself. Another thing that I'm very concerned about by flip-flopping this fund like that is fire trucks and ambulances wear out quite rapidly. Now, when I first came on the fire department, we were running fire trucks that should have been replaced 5 years prior to when they were replaced. They were not replaced or updated or even really maintained the way they should have because the money wasn't there because it had to come out of the general fund. All I'm asking is let's try and make a balance so we can at least maintain the equipment, and when it needs to be replaced or fixed, let's make sure it can be done. Because if we take this away and go back to the general fund, I guarantee you, when it comes time to replace them, money's not gonna be there. But I do challenge the rest of the council to go ride with the fire department and find out what's going on. I mean, you have questions of why the fire trucks are following the ambulance. Well, go find out.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Clem.
you don't have to convince me of that, Alderman Keister. Number one, I think they should do it? The answer to that's no. I've heard from more people. Could you tell me why every place a fire engine the ambulance goes, the fire truck follows it? Mathematically and economically, that's hard to sell to the general public. I mean, really it is. I'm not going to say whether it's right or wrong. But I could sure see a whole bunch of economical things there that'd be different.
Mayor?
I'm sorry, who has to be
Mayor,
recognized?
that was me.
Chief Miller.
Chief.
Thank you, everyone, for this discussion. I don't want to monopolize the floor here. First of all, I want it to be clear the fire department wants to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. We're certainly willing to work with the economic situation we're all in. I don't feel like that's my money. It sits in my pocket and in my checkbook for the department. I get that. We want to help out and be, have a stronger city budget. But as far as, and I'll make it very short, the fire engine following the ambulance on all calls, that just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. It's only on those calls where advanced life support is necessary, whether it's a trauma, cardiac, or somebody in really bad shape. Very frequently, the ambulance goes out by itself. And again, our policy is if they need additional manpower for lifting, for carrying, the stretcher itself is 130 pounds. So if you have two paramedics with their bag of equipment, the patient who's on the stretcher, we've got a growing community here. And the weight of the stretcher itself, I don't want to have any workers' comp claims for back injuries. My guys have been instructed, you need assistance with lifting, carrying things, let's work together and prevent further injuries. So we are, judicial as far as when that vehicle rolls and when it doesn't. We're even going with a model that a fire alarm, first engine that side of town will respond, lights and sirens. The other will just drive normally, drive slow. And if there's something that's reported over the radio, then they'll continue on to respond. So we are sensitive to economic issues, whether it's fuel or tires or brakes. We're addressing those things to be innovative and save the most amount of money as possible.
Mayor.
Alderperson Miller.
Chief, thank you for that and for being sensitive to the difference between needs and wants. That's really important, and I appreciate your take on that. My guess is, by the way the conversation was and what you said, Mayor, about flipping that from 60-40 to 40-60, if there's the possibility of saving some of his employment stuff. So in order to make that happen, would that have to be something to be in resolution form?
It can be formal, but it can also be sort of an understanding between us. I mean, if you want to see what the numbers look like for our next meeting, wherever it is, we can provide you that information. It can be done either way is the answer to your question. I think you might want to look at all of the obligations on that fund and then come back to you with what this looks like and maybe a recommendation from staff, what's a period of time before we sunset it, so that you can look at all the pieces before you pull the trigger on it.
Okay.
But, I mean, I've been making notes on everybody's questions here. They may not be perfect notes, but they'll highlight what I need to go to the tapes. And, frankly, we're not just here to listen and then smile and leave. We'll make adjustments to the budgets, and we'll check into the line items where there doesn't seem to be, it doesn't line up quite correctly. So I hope that the next version of this will address each and every issue that's been raised here, and that's one of them.
Mayor.
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. I've been listening very carefully, so just a few comments. The first comment is you might recall that the former council did a survey, and part of that survey on City Hall also included the priorities within the city. And I think it's important to note that 85.1% said that it was a high priority to reduce crime. So I think it was a wise choice to put the police officer back in the department and budget for it. The second one was expanding economic development. I think that falls in line with why we held the property taxes. It might be philosophical difference of opinion, but I think that there's many people on the council that are of the view that lower taxes generate growth and economic activity, which is why at the time in January, December, we decided to hold the property tax levy. It's important to note that the property taxes are the second highest in the state, only second to Winnebago in property tax rate, higher than Cook County, and that's a fact. So I also want to address while we had a number of aldermen speaking about ISO ratings, and that seems to be a very quick conversation that comes anytime we talk about the fire department. It's not a swipe at any one department. I think all the departments are doing a pretty good job, but it comes down to priorities and also not what we want, what we can afford. So just as a point of reference, Jody, where you were born and raised, your ISO rating in Dakota was a 7. Okay? And I'll let you be the judge if you felt that your life and safety was in danger, your insurance rates were out of control. Where I was born was in Shannon, which was a 5. If you don't like those two cities, a lot of smaller towns would look to Lena. That's a 4. If you look just outside of the city limits in Freeport Rural, it's a 6. So I don't know that I'm necessarily grasping on to this idea that the sky is going to fall if the ISO rating moves. I think that I would want to see what it looks like laid out and what our options are, but I don't know if we would go from a 3 to a 5 with the loss of 2 persons in the fire department. Don't know. I'd like to see what it looks like, not just back and forth conversation. But I think those are good points of reference when we're speaking of fact is okay. I think Alderman Busker hit a good point. We're not on an island. I think that we have maybe led in some cases like we're on an island, but there are a number of different people that are willing to help us out as we are willing to help them out. And I think that these ISO ratings are really levels of scare tactics that I don't necessarily accept. And I think that if you look at the neighboring communities that thousands of people live in, I don't know that they would accept. So those would just be my comments, but I think it's been a nice discussion. I think it's a discussion we're going to have on, and I appreciate it, and I think it's been very helpful. So thank you.
Mayor.
Yeah. Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. And just to follow up as we go further on the discussion, Chief, when you began kind of this discussion, you went through a list of scenarios and you gave some information, and it seemed like some of it was, if we have this, then this may happen, and if we have dual calls, this may happen. I don't necessarily want you to kind of rehash it again tonight, but is that something that you could maybe, as we go through the next week, either reduce to writing or something, so you could further flesh out a little bit? And I know at the end result, you kind of talked about ISO ratings and maybe closure of a station and things of that nature, but if you could further flesh out what were each one of those steps and how they interplay or don't interplay, what's the likelihood of them? You gave some numbers like 4,400. I think those are all the calls, so about 12 a day, I think it is, and how those are breaking down. How often do we have scenarios where you have both ambulances out and a fire call, things of that nature? If we could just flesh that out down the road, I think that might be a little helpful, just for some data.
Mayor, may I respond?
Chief?
Thank you. A lot of that information, the questions you just asked, was provided in your end-of-year report by our.
Well, I have that, and I looked at that before I asked the question. Some a little further, specifically in regards to what you said on there, because when I looked through, it talks about ambulance rate, or ambulance services at staff level, but if we could have a little further fleshed out. Like I said, I did look at it, and I still have the question.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Clem.
Chief Miller, I just wanted to thank you very much for the comment you made about, hey, let's take a look at this and what we can do. I think that's what we're all here for. Nobody's out to pick on anybody. I really appreciate your comments that, hey, let's take a look at this and let's get the information back and hash it all over. I really appreciate that, and thank you.
Other questions? Other comments? If we're kind of through this night's session, I'd like to pose to the council this question. We have almost 2 weeks before we have another meeting. The 30th, which is a week beyond, is on a holiday. But I think it would be useful to gather this information that we've taken from the council. I know some of you have been communicating on a regular basis back and forth with us, and aggregate it and perhaps have a study session. So my question is would the council like to have a study session, which could be somewhat informal along the lines that Alderman Miller had originally proposed, to go over a new set of changes and updates, and to explore perhaps some of the dialogue that we've had tonight with the fire department, with other departments. We'd like to start to winnow this into a final document and make sure that everybody has got every question they have answered, and also that everybody understands the same set of numbers. So I pose that as a possibility, and if somebody has a different idea, that's fine.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
I'd echo what you're saying. I believe that in the next, before the next meeting, we should have a meeting similar to what you mentioned, or however we want to do it, what do you want, or whatever you want to call it, you know.
I'd like to not meet next Monday, if possible. I'd like to have it any time after that, but I'd like to give us about 7 to 10 days to lock in on all the different issues and questions that have been raised. I'd like to have a little bit of a breather here to actually make sure we've got this right. And I know that there's a fair amount of frustration all of us have shared with all of the columns of numbers. We're really trying to bring that down so that we can get our arms around the key linchpin issues. So if there, one possibility would be to meet on Tuesday the 31st. And if some of you have, you know, maybe a late Thursday, Wednesday, the week before that, next week, that's a possibility too.
Mayor.
Alderman Keister.
I just want to state that from the 25th till sometime on the 30th, I will not be available.
Okay. Well, I would like to try to schedule a time when all of us are available. And I think, Alderman Keister, it's nice to have you as a part of this discussion because you have a different point of view about the fire department that you've articulated very well. So I want all points of view aired here as we finalize this. And if we can find a consensus, good. And if we can't find a consensus, let's at least make sure that we've had a clear debate. Everybody stated their position, it's been weighed, and then we approve it. So is there anyone here that would not be able to attend a session, which I would envision being a little bit less formal than what we have, if we scheduled it for Tuesday, the 31st, the day after Memorial Day?
And what time would that be?
You tell me. My time is yours. Or you. If I heard one person say along the line that they appreciated it if we didn't schedule it before 6.
5:30 and have sandwiches brought in?
We can do that. Does 5:30 on the 31st work?
With sandwiches?
With sandwiches.
Coming out of Alderman Bradshaw's budget.
Yeah.
How about professional services at the council? I'm just kidding. 5:30, 31st. We'll make this happen. Here is what I would like to ask very much of the council. I know that many of you have been going through these numbers, and I welcome that. If you come to some conclusions or questions about particular line items, if you can share it with us in advance, I'd appreciate it. You can share it with
That's easy to
Bernie.
do when we get it in advance.
I know,
Okay.
and we've got a document now that I think you've picked through pretty cleanly, and I think that you've done a nice job. If you can raise questions, we'll use the base document that's been distributed as our starting point. We will try to finalize things well in advance of the next meeting so that we're clear. I also will, again, try to make sure that our department heads have a narrative that is updated and that we're clear in these line items what goes to what department.
Mayor.
So the more discussion we have in advance, the better it is for us in terms of understanding what issues are coming up. Is there anything else on that? Alderman McClenathan.
Thank you. Chief Miller, was there something in regards to the 31st that, scheduling wise, I thought you said something right at the end there.
Let's say fire improvement can cover the cost of the sandwiches.
Oh.
Okay. Then we will schedule that. Is there anything else on this item of under other business? If not, we're going to move to department heads.
May I?
Bernie.
Yes. I will be out of town next week. I will be here at the GFOA conference in Toronto. One of the topics, how to build a finance office. Okay? So, anyway, you all have a nice evening.
Okay, other reports of department heads. We kind of spent a lot of time with the fire chief. We'll start with other departments first.
We beat him up bad enough tonight, right, Chief?
We'll start with Director Mills. Director Mills, Community Development. Anything else? New?
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to thank the officials at Stevenson County for their assistance over the last week with the transfer of tax properties to the nonprofit partner in the blight reduction grant or blight reduction program. Chairman Hadley and the treasurer and the clerk were all very accommodating, and their staff was very helpful, and it worked out well, cooperatively.
Any questions from the council?
Mayor.
Mayor.
Oh,
Alderman Keister.
wait.
The article in the paper
Alderperson
on
Miller.
Sunday talked about the blight reduction with the deconstruction end of that, okay? What I don't understand on it is how many spots there are available for that program, for training, who is in that pool of picks, and how do they get picked? How do you apply? Where will it be? When will it be? There's a lot of questions that didn't even know that this program existed.
Director Mills.
Thank you. With quite a few questions there, would it be better for me to send you a memo that our department put together on that kind of gives that whole overview and how the whole process works going forward? And it does acknowledge that some parts of that aren't set in stone yet, aren't totally figured out.
Okay.
But would that be, I can send it to you here. Okay.
Mayor.
Alderman Keister.
Yeah, Director Mills, I talked to you a week or two ago about some issues in my ward with some concrete and stuff. Have you been able to find anything out about that yet?
Yes, I emailed you back on that. That particular property was commercial, not residential, so not eligible for the sidewalk share program.
Okay, and there was nothing else you found that would be able to help him?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you.
We have from time to time, Alderman Keister, removed sidewalk for commercial establishments. We have done that in the downtown for specific businesses. So that might be one element that we could help anyway.
Okay, I will talk to you about it later.
Okay. Director Dole.
I have no report this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Fire Chief, anything else?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Just want to report to council, we've been pretty busy the last 24 hours. We've had 2 structure fires in a 24-hour period. One was yesterday morning, which unfortunately resulted in a total loss of the structure. It was believed that the space heater was the source, too close to combustibles. This afternoon, we had another house fire at the 1000 block of South Carroll. That sustained some significant damage, but fortunately, a quick response on our end saved it to 2 rooms and an entryway. Cause of that is believed to be oxygen and combustible materials too close to an ignition source. No injuries reported from either structure fires. That's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Any
Mayor.
questions from the council?
Mayor.
Alderman Chesney?
Thank you. Chief Miller, just a quick question. When we have a structural fire and we come on the scene, after everything is taken care of, what's the process? Do we file a lien against the insurance company to take care of those services? How is the billing process handled?
Chief?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. What we do right now is we've been working closely with community development. We have a form that's filled out at the scene of the fire. Actually, here's an example of it. I'm giving it to Alex after this meeting here. And what he does that provides him the ability to track remediation within that property. So in other words, insurance information is contained on this sheet, as well as owner and or renter information. We get the insurance company and whether there's a mortgage or not. So it's a pretty detailed document, and then it goes to community development, and they follow up with insurance and make sure that any monies are withheld from a settlement to cover the cost of demolition, if in the fact that demolition would be necessary. So,
Director Mills, do you want to comment on that?
Sure. Each instance, since I've been here, seem to be a little different. Some need minor repairs, some do in fact need demolition. And from what I can tell, some insurance companies are aware of the state laws and statutes, and some aren't. And we have to remind them of what the rules are and how they need to have us fill out that form before they can disperse any funds. But no, it seems to be a good process that allows us to recover those costs such as they are and make sure that our properties are taken care of.
Thank you.
More than once, Alderman Chesney, there's a duplex, I believe, that was on Maple, where it took quite a while, but with the help of the insurance company, the owner had to demolish the structure because it was considered not repairable before we would agree to the release of funds that remain past the demolition. So we've been very vigorous in pursuing this in the wake of fires because otherwise it becomes such a headache for the taxpayers.
Thank you.
Any other questions to the fire chief? Now we'll move on to the police chief.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to remind everybody that today and the rest of this week, Freeport Police Department is hosting a police bicyclist class. So you will see, the community will see approximately, 10 to 15 bicyclists, all from different agencies, training in and around Freeport. So don't be alarmed by that. So it's they're the good guys. So just want to remind them.
Any questions to the police chief?
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
Today I heard over the news that many of the departments in Illinois, whether it was a matter of increased funding or not, but we're going to be out with tickets more for seat belts on and so forth due to the amount of deaths in the state of Illinois. I mean, it's up considerably what it was last year.
You're right. I mean, the fatalities are up, and I was talking with high command trooper just recently at a function, and he stated that that as well. There's not been any kind of mandates. In fact, we'll run our traffic just like we normally do. We'll have our campaigns. We're always looking for that type of activity as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? If not, Director Glendenning.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one topic to report on tonight, and it's a big one. It's obviously the Phase B water improvements. We continue to have 3 construction crews working very fast and quickly and diligently on all these projects. It's taking an enormous amount of inspection from our construction crews and our engineering department, but it also includes a big inconvenience to a lot of our customers, and we really appreciate their cooperation. There's continues to be successive precautionary boil orders for service reinstatement and everything as everyone gets new services. So that takes a lot of time. It takes our lab crews into the weekend for pulling these tests out, and then the construction crews have to go back out and basically undo the boil order in some of these areas. So it's taken a huge effort, but it's going very, very well. One very sensitive part got completed today. As you'll notice, Stevenson Street was back open at 4 o'clock this afternoon. But that was one of the more sensitive areas to reinstate the brand new main around Freeport Memorial Hospital. This is a very huge improvement to our distribution system, and it's nice to have that done, and just takes a little pressure off from other problems. But we're far from done. Yeah, if you happen to get on the one side, we're doing some pretty cool technology where we're doing directional boring, but we're actually fusing HDPE pipe together and pushing it through the ground instead of open digging. So that process has been around, but it's also saving us some money. So again, a big thank you to all of our employees, our construction crews, the engineering crews, and to everything that's making this happen. We're on a very good schedule, and it's going well. That's it, unless there's more questions.
Any questions from the council?
Mayor.
Alderman Busker.
Yeah, Mr. Glendenning, what project was your crews working on up on Float Street today?
Float Street, we're doing, we were starting the cut. That was one we've been getting successive complaints about a bad dip in the road. That was a repair that we did to a collapsed sewer earlier this spring. That was about a 16 to 17 foot deep dig, and it continues to settle and settle. And we were adding, but it was pretty hard to keep up with it. But we're to the point now that we'll be doing a cut, and Mr. Dole and his public paving crew is going to come coat that over for us on Wednesday.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Council may also notice that we're almost finished with Harlem. There's a lot of work being done, and it's going to look pretty good when you get done.
Yeah, paving will commence here very quickly. We're all lined up for that, so that'll be another nice one. That'll be contract number 1 will be complete, other than a little landscaping and things to go on. So 1 down, 2 big ones to go.
Any other questions? Library. Okay. Treasurer? Okay. Did I miss anyone? Mayor's report. You'll notice we have a new camera operator, Colton, who has returned, volunteering his time from college. Colton, welcome back.
Thank you. It's budget time.
Thank you. The price is right. I'm going to be sending the council a communication about finance director of a resume that I'd like you to give me some feedback, and we'll probably be setting up a meeting in the very near future with a candidate for you to interview, sort of as a pre-interview. I have in mind also having the same person reviewed by some community people. There's been a lot of background work and a lot of interviewing, a lot of staff involvement in this. I'd like to bring it to a conclusion. Any questions?
Mayor,
Alderman Chesney.
what's the proposed salary, plus or minus?
Can I talk to you about that afterwards?
Sure.
Because it isn't finalized, but I will tell you that is substantially different than the last candidate.
Okay.
In a favorable direction. Okay. Council business, Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to commend Mr. Glendenning and his crew, and also our road crew and engineer for all the infrastructure work in the 6th Ward. We have many streets tore up, a lot of dust and mess. I've commiserated with a lot of the constituents there and had to pacify a few of them that are concerned about the construction dust, the divots, the gravel, the inconvenience, and the speeding cars that raise even more dust and gravel. And of course, you have no control over any of that. I did have a few talks with Engineer Gallagher, who said that they're waiting on the hot mix. That is the wait right now. As soon as the hot mix is generated, they'll be able to coat these roads, cover the roads, I should say, and re-blacktop them so that they're usable. So I'm just asking everybody just patience for another week or two until your road gets done, and it will be a lot better. Harlem Road is looking really good with the curb and gutter. So I'm glad you guys got that done too. That's all. Thank you.
Alderman Keister.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Several things. First of all, once again, a reminder, it is May Motorcycle Awareness Month. There's a lot of us out there riding, and the problem is you've gone all winter without seeing motorcycles out there. You're not used to seeing them again, so train yourself to look for them and help keep us safe out there. Number two, Mr. Glendenning, I'm glad to hear that the spot on Float Street is going to finally be fixed. It is not my ward, but I have received a number of calls on that one myself, so I'm glad to hear that's going to be fixed. And one other thing I want to bring up, I've been going to do this and I put it off, and I'm going to do it tonight. I've had, over the past few months, numerous comments about what goes on here on the city council, both from people in my ward and people outside of my ward. My comment to that is really quite simple. The people out there in our wards that voted us in here are the boss. They are the ones that should call us and let us know what's going on and give us their comments. So I'm inviting everybody out there right now. If you have a problem with what's going on, with decisions that are being made, the way people are acting, whatever, call your alderman. Call the alderman at large. He doesn't have a ward, he has the whole city. So you should call your own alderman and the alderman at large as well if you have a problem with what's going on. But people, we're supposed to be your voice here, and you are the boss. You put us here to make decisions for you. If you don't like what's going on, pick up the phone and call. The phone numbers for every one of us is on the city website. If you can't get a hold of that, I'm sure if you call Meg, if she has time, she'll get them for you. And if not, call me and I'll get them for you. If you don't know what ward you're in, it's on the website, or call me and I'll help you figure it out. My number is 238-4958. But I want to see the people get more involved with what goes on here in the council. And if you don't like what's going on, then let us hear about it. If you like what's going on, again, let us hear about it. But please, we should be getting dozens of calls a week. That's all I have to say on that.
Alderman Chesney.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Alderman Clem.
Two things, Mr. Mayor. First off, yesterday the VFW held a loyalty meeting and a District 6 meeting that involves the top 8 states or top 8 counties in northern Illinois. And one of the things that was involved in that was a firing detail. And the firing detail was furnished by the Freeport Police Department. And I'd like to personally thank the chief for that and thank Corporal Laurent, Patrolman Copeland, Patrolman Hodges, Patrolman Sanders, and Patrolman Hilby. They did an absolutely great job, represented the police department fine. Excellent personnel you have.
Thank you. That firing squad, that's not an easy feat to handle either.
No, it isn't. It did a terrific job. And if I could, for Chief Miller, first of all, I wanted to say thanks for the discussion back and forth. You know, when we're talking, things are going to happen and things are going on. I really appreciate that. I by no means want to have a volunteer fire department. I just brought that up to put things in perspective, so don't think, you know, tomorrow morning we're going to try and do X, Y, or Z. The answer to that is no. But I think we have to look at things in perspective, and I'm glad for your open mind in doing that, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. Just to follow up on earlier discussion and with the feedback that we're getting later on, whether it's Bernie or the mayor, could we have what are the current balances of the capital equipment fund, the fire improvement fund, and what are we generating on an annual basis for both of those funds. No further comment than that.
Yes, thank you. Alderman Ross.
Nothing at this time.
Alderman Miller.
Nothing, thank you.
Alderman Busker, you have the last word.
Great. Don't really have too much tonight. The Fifth Ward Neighborhood Watch meeting will be tomorrow night at First Church of the Nazarene in Empire and Carroll. Unfortunately, I'm unable to attend that meeting again I'll be back next month for sure. Other than that, I don't know how my comments earlier came across, Fire Chief, but as Alderman Clem said, I'm in no favor of making your department a volunteer department. I just know that, you know, in times of need, you know, everyone needs to reach out for help, and I'd like to know that you guys feel comfortable doing that, because, you know, everyone in this city wants to be safe. Thank you.
That concludes new business with council. Public comments. Mr. Mead. My apologies. This has been a much longer meeting than I thought. Yes, go ahead.
My name's Michael Mead, 217 West Main. This is a little off topic, but it will relate to why I'm speaking up here, so bear with me. When I was in my early 20s, my general manager promoted me to a warehouse manager because of my work ethic. I oversaw a group of 12 employees and 15 employees with learning and developmental disabilities that were subcontracted to us through Goodwill Industries. It was then that I realized something. I would become agitated with my regular employees for not completing tasks. Meanwhile, the employees with developmental disabilities would frequently make mistakes time and time again, and it never seemed to frustrate me. I soon realized that the frustration was a result of my expectations based on people's capacity to learn. If an employee knew better but made a mistake, I was frustrated. The Goodwill employees, however, never frustrated me because I understood and accepted their limitations. They needed more guidance, more routine, and more direction. They excelled at doing routine, repetitive tasks. I realized, let them do what they're comfortable with and like doing, and they will excel. And they did, to the point where I began to schedule more Goodwill employees for more hours and less hours for the other employees for the sake of progress. Like the warehouse employees at that job, sometimes the city frustrates me in much of the same way. Failure to learn from its own mistakes. I love this city very much and know more about the history of this town than many of the residents here because of my love for it. Reflecting on this today, I thought of this job back then. Frustration comes from expecting more out of someone or something than they're willing or able to give. For more than a year, I've been talking with City Hall about cooperating on a deconstruction and salvage operation. I've had multiple meetings with multiple people and have left feeling like I'm getting the bum's rush. Imagine my surprise, excitement, and then disappointment when a person from Rockford told me about a deconstruction program being formed in Freeport. I had reached out to him to find out how he had results starting a similar program in his community. Imagine how even more surprised I was Sunday morning when a number of friends sent me a link to the article that the mayor wrote about the proposed deconstruction program. As someone who has shown commitment to Freeport, its downtown, and has demonstrated that commitment through financial investment and hard work, I have to wonder why my attempts to work with the city on this program fell on deaf ears, only to have a similar program crop up suddenly. If we cannot include and bring together our own citizens, those who are committed to the community, live here, work here, build businesses here, will never bring outside businesses here. If we can't overcome the mistakes of our past and begin to communicate openly and collaboratively, then we don't have a chance. If we want to market our community, which is the point of hiring a marketing and branding company, I would suggest that we first start communicating with and collaborating with our own citizens first, particularly those that are getting their hands dirty trying to make this city a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment? Mr. Take?
Chesney, does Tom Sesson talk to you about that weeds over by Lamb Road?
No.
He said he'd talk to you about it, but they need to do something with that because the weeds growing like that by the transfer station.
Oh, he did talk to me about that. We have to get on that. Go ahead.
And what's his name? Alex?
Alex?
Alex Mills. We want to know about that weeds over by Lamb Road at transfer station.
We'll get right on that.
And I want to tell the mayor he did a good job for doing a good job, the mayor of Freeport. And I want to tell you my birthday is on the June 2nd. I'm going to